Someone here mentioning Jamie Robinson for week 6, please. Well, has he qualified via the ADC?
81.
Can I have one guess who sent that message? Double 14 for Quanny for 2-0 and a 17 dart leg.
Chris Quantock.
I believe, is it one of the boxing podcasts who sent that in?
First.
Boxing Social. Didn't know they were dart fans.
I think they're a little bit disappointed Scholes is not commentating tonight.
45.
Evening, lads.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast in association with Darts Corner. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me someone who I'm glad to say always replies to my text messages, but remember, I'm not just anyone. It is the Darts statistician, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
Yeah, if you'd won 5 world titles, I would probably ignore you. But I'm doing great. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing well, thank you. My mood might be a little less jovial this time next week after I've watched Colchester and Stowmarket play football this weekend. But before then, plenty to discuss. We're going to be joined by 2 guests. We're ticking off another tour card holder on our list. Germany's Lukas Wenig is going to be calling in, plus the newly crowned champion of champions, Richie Howson, also stopping by after winning his first seniors title on TV. But we've never shied away from the big topics in the world of darts, so we've got to start this week's show with a discussion on a player who we had on as a guest on the show last week, and she's attracted plenty of headlines over the weekend. That player is Noa-Lynn van Leuven. She backs up her first Challenge Tour title with a first Women's Series title at the weekend. There's been a lot of talk on social media off the back of it. Noa-Lynn, she's been playing in the women's events in both the PDC and the WDF for some time now, with the support as well from those organisations, and she's enjoying more success now, but sadly with it comes a lot more noise as well. How do you see this playing out over the coming months?
I really don't know if we can fully guess how it's going to play out. As long as she continues to have the support of the PDC, of the WDF, of the Dutch board, then I think the status quo will remain the status quo. And I hope she continues to have the support. We had Barry Hearn on the show in one of our first couple of seasons, and he said, at the time, he didn't see a need for a women's series because you don't need to be a man to play darts at the highest level. And plenty of people have proven that. So as opposed to some other sports where there is unquestionably a biological advantage that rises going through puberty as a man prior to transitioning, that transitioning won't completely get rid of. I don't see darts as one of those sports, and I don't see what advantage Noa-Lynn van Leuven has over the competition based on the fact that she had been born male. I don't see what it is, and I don't see what the issue is there. In other sports, it is complex, and there are good and bad arguments on both sides in other sports. But I don't see it in darts. I do not see why this should be an issue. I understand that people are frustrated, and obviously, we saw the comments from Aline de Graaf and Anke Zylstra pulling out of the Dutch team. We saw Dita Hedman make comments again about Noa-Lynn van Leuven. It's sad, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but their opinion shouldn't override Noa-Lynn's right to compete. I hope, and I believe, but I haven't talked to everyone, but I hope and believe that those are minority viewpoints. And I hope, and again, I haven't talked to everyone, but I believe that the PDC, the WDF, and the Dutch board will continue to back and support Noa-Lynn over the coming months. Because as long as they do, then there's really not anything anyone who has a different point of view can do other than make the decision whether they're going to compete themselves or not. And if they make the choice not to compete, well, then they're hurting only themselves. There are plenty of really, really good female players now. Noa-Lynn is just one of a growing handful or 2 handfuls of players who on any given day can win a title. And we'll talk more about that on the next question. We saw a weekend where Beau Greaves had possibly her worst weekend or second worst weekend in the women's series, still averaged 83. But if you look at just the number of players who are now averaging into the mid 70s, it's so much higher than it was. You go back to the first season, just 4 players averaged over 74. In the first weekend, and yes, it's only one weekend this year, 10 did, including 3 over 80, and Noa-Lynn van Leuven being one of those 3. Kirsty Venikainen, one of the people I shouted out last week, is actually 4th in average, is ahead of Mikuru Suzuki, who won a title. There are so many players playing at a high level that it should be something that we're all talking about and celebrating from this weekend. Instead, we're talking about Noa-Lynn van Leuven, and not for her winning a title, not for her becoming the first person in the space of a week to win titles against both men and women, but rather talking about whether she should be allowed to compete. This isn't football. This isn't weightlifting. This isn't a sport where going through puberty as a man is going to give you some sort of ingrained advantage. If there is an advantage, I don't know what it is. And maybe I shouldn't be speaking then, because I don't, I'm not a scientist, but I'm not a biologist, but I don't see what advantage would come from going through puberty as a man in darts compared to other sports. And hopefully that view wins out. But let's get back to talking about the darts. Let's get talking about how brilliant Noa-Lynn van Leuven was. Sure, not as brilliant as she was en route to the title in the Challenge Tour last week, but pretty darn close. 101 average against Fallon Sherrock, over 90 against Beau Greaves, coming through that in 8 legs, over 90 against Anka Zylstra. Haters are going to hate. Another just phenomenal performance and another title for one of the top players in the world.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. And the Noa-Lynn van Leuven story is one that you could say has been bubbling under the surface for a while now, going back to when she first started playing on the Women's Series a little under 2 years ago now. She transitioned from a man to a woman before that, and darts had been a passion of hers. She took a break from playing darts for 3 or 4 years, started playing again sometime after she'd went into that program to identify as a woman. And with every success that Noa-Lynn van Leuven is having, the noise, it appears to be getting louder and louder from those that don't agree with her being allowed to compete in the women's events. And one of the things that most disappoints me about this whole situation, if you like, is that a week before Noa won that women's series title, she went to the Challenge Tour, she won a title on debut, played some incredible darts on the way to winning that title. And the Challenge Tour, as we know, it's open to anyone, any gender. It's not exclusive to male or female players. So regardless of your opinion, there's no reason to suggest that Noa couldn't play in those events or wouldn't be welcomed by some. Yet the PDC in the end, they've had to turn off the comments on the social media posts mentioning Noa's Challenge Tour title because some people still feel the need to comment with digs at her negative comments. So coming into this past weekend, the Women's Series returned, and the form that Noa had shown on the Challenge Tour, I personally felt, and I'm sure many others felt, that another title could be on the cards. And so it proved to be, winning that second event, beating most people's top 2 ladies in the game right now, Beau Greaves and Fallon Sherrock, on the way to doing it. And as we saw, the PDC, other media outlets as well, when they reported the win, they turned the comments off straight away. And that didn't stop people coming on social media, having their say and questioning why Noa's allowed to play in the Women's Series events. And the reason she is pretty simple. She follows the rules that have been set out by the DRA. They're the rules that the PDC follow, the DRA's rules. And the DRA, where do they get their rules from? They're following the guidance from the IOC, that's the International Olympic Committee. And Matt Porter, the PDC chief exec, he said sometime last year that Noa-Lynn van Leuven more than complies with Darts' transgender policy. So I don't see how the PDC stance is going to change on this in the immediate future. This story, one that's clearly not going to go away anytime soon, and I can't see an outcome where everyone's going to be happy. You could please the players that decide that want only biological women in women's events, ban Noa and all the transgender players, but what kind of message is that going to send out when before you've been saying that darts is inclusive to everyone and we welcome transgender players if they comply with the regulations? Well, we're going to go back on that now. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen, and it's a very delicate subject, one that does require a lot of thought. And I think it's great that Noa-Lynn van Leuven is allowed to be what she wants to be. She identifies as a woman. She's gone through the relevant steps to be able to play darts in the women's events, the gender that she recognises herself as. And I don't see how in darts, like you mentioned there, being a male gives you that big advantage compared to female players. And if that was the case, then surely Noa-Lynn van Leuven, the first time she walked into a venue to play the women's series, she'd have won everything. But that's not been the case. This has been a story over the last few years where Noah's level has increased year on year, and she's now hit the heights that have seen her win these titles. And she's obviously got a talent. She's worked hard on her game to get to the level that she's at now. And I think with everything that's gone on behind the scenes, she deserves a lot more credit than she's getting, because if that was me and you're trying to play darts at the highest level you can and you've got all that noise going on in the background, I certainly wouldn't be able to produce that kind of game. I wouldn't be able to anyway. But I don't think this is a story that we've heard the end of, and I'm sure it's something that we're going to continue to be talking about as well.
But let's talk a little bit more about the women's series at the weekend. Of course, we mentioned Noa-Lynn winning a title, but the question of the week, sponsored by Condor Darts, is who will be the number one seed for the 2024 Women's World Matchplay as that race up?
Well, looking at the poll at the moment on Twitter, and you can go and have your say if you haven't already, it's going to be open for the rest of the week. 54% of our listeners are going with Beau Greaves, 44% are going with Fallon, Sherrock, 2% going with other, and whoever that other player is, they're going to need one hell of a run over the next 2 weekends. But a few of our listeners getting in touch. Henry Joy saying Sherrock has been by far the better player of the two over the past number of months. Greaves has got complacent, but Sherrock seems back to the levels of motivation she had a year or two ago. Skippy saying Beau will be back with a vengeance. So our listeners very much split on this one, and looking at the race to Blackpool, hardly anything to split Fallon Sherrock and Beau Greaves with 2 weekends of events left to go. Fallon Sherrock, £15,600. She banked £5,000 at the weekend, 2 titles, 2 semi-finals. Beau Greaves dropping down to number 2, just £100 behind on £15,500. Pocketed £2,400 at the weekend, a couple of finals, a quarter final, and a last 32. And yeah, how things can change. You go back to last summer, Beau Greaves winning the Women's World Matchplay, and then the following weekend did the clean sweep, winning 4 out of 4 titles on the Women's Series. And back then we were thinking, who is going to stop this young woman? But since then we've had 12 Women's Series across the end of last year. The weekend just gone into 2024, and Beau Greaves, she's managed to win just one of them. Meanwhile, Fallon Sherrock, she's found her stride again. It looks like she's won 6 of the last 9 events. And in 3 of those finals, she's beaten Beau Greaves twice in the last leg deciders, and then the last event of the weekend on Sunday, a 5-1 win. Beau averaging 76 in that final, Fallon 87. And the tide, it does appear to be turning somewhat. I think it's a combination of Beau's level dropping off by a few points, but I think the main thing here is that Fallon's level has picked up. You go back to 2022, the Women's Series, Beau's return. She averaged 85.81 for the season. Fallon, she was in 3rd place on that list, 80.79 last year. Beau a little bit lower, 85.58. Fallon upped her level by a few points. She was up to 2nd on the averages, 83.69. And okay, we are only 1 weekend into the season, but Beau dropping a couple of points to 83.14. Fallon lifting her game again. She is top of the averages, 86.43. So it's a noticeable drop off for Beau, because you think only last month we were talking about her debut on the development tour. She was averaging just under that 86. She was making a pair of quarterfinals, and we were both waxing lyrical about her after that weekend. So I personally think this is a blip for Beau. I expect her to respond when the Women's Series picks up again next month. As for Fallon, it's great signs for her. Her game is really on the up again, and for us as fans, it's an exciting prospect to see these two go at each other. And when they're both at their best, we're certainly going to be in for a treat. So as for the question, I'm going to give the edge to Beau on this one, just because of the last few years. She's earned enough credit in the bank for me to say that this was an off weekend for her, and who knows, it could well come down to another final between these two. We could get to that last event before the cut-off, and that could be what decides who goes to Blackpool as that number 1 seed.
Well, I guess we're going to have some disagreement here, since you decided that you're going to tip Beau to get back into the number 1 spot. Only 100 pounds separating them right now after this past weekend. It's absolutely absurd how close it is. But I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say Fallon is going to hold on to the lead that she just took for the first time. Still 8 events to go before the cutoff. So it's, well, I mean, even Makura could still close the gap, although maybe it's a little bit too much. But I think Fallon is just playing that little bit better. I do think we're going to see Beau Greaves bounce back. And you went through the stats of the last few years. I plan to do that same thing. But the big thing I want to focus on is not Beau Greaves' number. Yes, it's down on what it was last year. Yes, it's down on what it was a couple of years ago. It's down a few points. And I think once she gets fully back to her best and gets her confidence fully back, she'll be back averaging closer to an 86 than the 83 that she's just at right now. But it's the Fallon Sherrock number that I want to focus on, because the last couple of years have not been her best. You mentioned 2 years ago when Beau Greaves first came on, Fallon Sherrock barely was over the 80, 80.79. Last year, higher, 83.69, and this year 86.43. But I skipped a year there. I skipped the very first women's series back in 2021. Well, that year, Fallon Sherrock averaged 85.54. A little bit lower than she is through one weekend, but not significantly. 1 point lower. And when you factor in that overall the standard back then was lower, just by having to play against better players, it's certainly probably a point harder now, because there's going to be more legs that you lose without ever getting a look at than there were back then. So probably her 86 and change now is close to what that 85 and change was 3 years ago. That means she's basically back where she was when she was at her best, when she made the final of a World Series event, where she had been just a few months on from having won 2 matches at the World Championships and running Chris Dobie very close in that third round as well. Fallon Sherrock is playing, at least in one weekend, back where she was when she was at her best. And, she played very well at Q School this year. I think this is, she had a fairly good weekend at the Challenge Tour as well. This is the best we've seen from Fallon Sherrock in some time. After a couple years in the doldrums, she's back. Beau Greaves, it's the worst we've seen from her. It's still second highest in the averages and still good enough over the course of a weekend to make a pair of finals, coming with pretty close to winning one of them. But there's room for Beau Greaves to grow back and to increase. And right now, as things stand, she's not in the World Championships because she's 4th in the women's series through 4 events. And only the top 2 most likely are qualifying unless things change. That will change. Beau Greaves will move back up. Beau Greaves will win titles. She'll very well will have another weekend where she wins 3 titles. But I don't think that that's going to happen in the next women's series. I'm not even sure it'll happen before the second half of the season. I think Beau Greaves needs to get her confidence back. She needs to get some of that mojo back. And maybe a couple more good runs at the development series is in the offing. That might just be what she needs to get back. But that's not the next weekend in the development series isn't until May. There's still a women's series at weekend before then. And Fallon Sherrock shows no signs of slowing down. You mentioned 6 of the last 9 titles to Fallon Sherrock. Well, she doesn't even need to win 6 of or even 5 of the next 8 to be the top seed. 4 will likely be enough. 2 or 3 might still be enough depending on how things go. And I think Fallon Sherrock will do it. So I'm going Fallon Sherrock because she's playing the best we've seen from her. And the best from her is good enough to make a title on television against the best in the world.
Well, there we go. We're divided on that one. Let us know who you think is going to be the number 1 seed for the Women's World Match Play this summer. We'll be back in a moment. But before we come back, let's bring in our first guest on this week's show. He is one of the new tour card holders for 2024. Here's our chat with Germany's Lukas Wenig. I'm pleased to say we're joined by one of the new tour card holders for 2024, Lukas Wenig. Thanks for the time, Lukas. How are you doing?
Hello, guys. Yes, I'm fine. I'm really glad to make the podcast with you and to give you some answer for your questions. And yes, let's start.
Well, it's great to have you on, and we're talking just a few days before you make the trip to Munich to play on the European Tour again. How much are you looking forward to playing in front of that home crowd over the Easter weekend?
I'm really happy that I have qualified for Munich and Belgium before as well, because Munich is a fantastic city. I live in Bavaria, and Munich is the big city of Bavaria, and yes, to play for the German crowd is also fantastic, and I'm really happy that I have qualified for that.
Glad to hear, and it will be the first time you're playing in front of a German crowd on the European Tour as a tour card holder as well. What has life been like so far, being one of those 128 on the PDC Tour?
A little bit has changed because the tournaments are during the week and not on the weekend. It's a little bit difficult to complain with work and darts, but when you also look on darts, it's completely different to the Challenge Tour. It's more quiet. It's another feeling to play as a tour card holder, and I'm really glad that I'm one of them now.
Well, we'll come back to Q School, how you won your tour card a bit later on, but as this is the first time we've had you on our podcast as a guest, let's go back to the start for you in darts. Where did it begin? How did you first discover the game?
First discovered the game in my childhood. My mom and dad was really good soft tip players. My mom won some national and international titles in soft tip, and I think when I was 6 years old we had a big soft tip automat. I don't know the right English word for that at home, and yes, I also threw darts on it. And after I was 13 we moved to Bavaria, and my stepfather had a bar with some soft tip automat, and when I was 14 years old, and what do you do the whole day? You play darts there. And that was the beginning with 14 years. I think when I was 19 years old, I started with steel dart as well, with a good friend, and that was the steel dart beginning.
So it sounds like you were hooked on darts straight away after being introduced to it by your mum and dad. Was there a lot of opportunities to play darts back then when you started out?
Yes, as I moved to Bavaria, I had some friends there, and they played in a team, in a soft tip team, and they invited me to play in this team. And then with 14 years, I had the team to play all weekend, and that was the beginning. And I also had the chance to play every weekend. And after that, I found some tournaments next to me, and it was a good start for me, I think. Also, I had some opportunities to play darts.
Definitely. And you mentioned that you got introduced to steel tip darts a little bit after that, and we see you play on the development tour in 2016, 2018 as well. How did you find those early experiences of the PDC setup?
It was my first touch with the PDC. I didn't know anything about the PDC, and I saw the tournament in the internet, and then I thought, okay, try it, drive to the area and play this tournament, but I didn't know anything before, and it was a great experience. It was more quiet than the other tournaments I played before, and for me it was really interesting. And after the moment I thought, okay, I think I will be, I like to do the next steps to get the level to play more on this event.
Yeah, we saw that. The next step for you, 2019, you went to Q School for the first time. What persuaded you back then to give Q School a go for the first time?
I think it's nearly the same as with the development tour in 2016. I didn't know what Q School is, what the tour cards are, what the pros are, and I thought, okay, everybody go in general to this to play there, and I thought, okay, I try to make the next step to learn more and go there, but I have no, it's difficult to say, but I have no expectations.
And so that year, 2019, it was a memorable year as well. It was the year that you made your debut on the European Tour in Saarbrücken. What was that experience like, playing on the big stage for the first time?
It was so fantastic. It was the best experience I had in my life before. To play there in front of the crowd, and so many people are singing my name, and it was it was a big start. And after that I said to me, okay, Lukas, that is what you like to play in the next years, and you must work for it and try everything to get back on this stage. And that was my start.
Yeah, it certainly was. And you were back on that stage in 2020. You get your first win on the European tour, but around this time, darts, it's very different because of the pandemic. Did you have a break from darts then, or were you one of the players who kept going and played a lot online?
I played a lot online, and I think in this time I put maybe 30% on top. I played much more than before, a lot of online tournaments, and it was going better and better and better, and at home I played a 90 plus before, near 100 before. I had the chance to play against some PDC stars over the COVID Facebook tournament. I played against Annie Bolton, I played against Mike the Decker, and so on, and that was the best training for me, and I can say I took the chance to play more at home, and after that I was better.
Yeah, so you go from playing against these PDC players at home to then playing them in the tournaments in person. 2021, we've still got the blocks of Players' Championship events. You get that call up to play in one of them. What do you remember about being in that room with all the world's best players and playing in those events that week?
Yes, it was after the Super League from Germany, and then I had the chance to play there, and I stepped into the room and saw every starter, and I thought, oh my god, it's so amazing. And I had a little, it's difficult to explain. My heart beats faster, and I had a smiling in my face because I had the chance to be there. I worked for it, and I had the chance, I took the chance. And my first game against Darius Labanauskas, I won the decider 6-5, and it was another great experience for me. And going the next step, it feel good to get some back for the work I put it in.
And fast forward to the start of 2022, and you narrowly miss out on a tour card at Q School on legs difference. How tough was that to take, coming so close to achieving that dream of winning a tour card?
Oh, it was really hard for me. Before I didn't thought I had the chance to win a tour card, and when you are so close to it, after that it was so hard for me. Maybe I need 1 month to come down and get the head up. But I think after that it was good not to win the tour card at this moment, because I think it was too early, and I think then I learned more in losing that I get if I win it.
And after being so close in 2022, a year later in 2023, Q School doesn't go to plan. You finished that final stage without a point, but some tough draws each day. I think you lost to 3 players that would go on to win tour cards. How did you reflect on that week at Q School?
After that, I said I was not good enough. Before Q School, I said to me, okay, this is your time, Lukas. You are ready now. 2022 was a good year. I played fantastic games. I had good results, and I thought, okay, come on, this year you will take it. But maybe I put too much pressure on myself with it, and after that I losing against 3 people who won the tour card, I thought, okay, you are not ready. It's not enough to play a good year. There's so much more to learn, and it was difficult because I didn't know what I should to learn. What must I learn to do the next steps? And it was a really hard year for me, because the results was okay, but my playing level was not so good as the year before. And yes.
Yeah, you talk about learning in the game still. Looking back on that 2023, 2 Challenge Tour finals, you won a week on the Modus Super Series as well, a semi-final in the German Super League. What did you learn from last year heading into 2024?
I should work more. It's the training at home is really important, but the training during the tournament, when you lose games, it's so much more to learn. Not only to play darts, it's all about around darts, and I think I know some more points what I must learn. And the results was good in 2023, but my level was not so good, and I didn't expect that I had the results, but I had it.
Well, we then come on to this year, and at the 6th attempt you win your card at Q School. You called it a dream come true after many years of dreaming of winning a card, but you said that going into Q School this year you felt the least ready for it and went in with lower expectations. Why was that?
Maybe this year I thought, okay, you're not ready to get the tour card, and maybe I took the pressure from me with this answer, and maybe this was the key to feel a little bit more confidence at the tournament. Yes, and for me, as I said before, I didn't have the level last year, and I thought, okay, you don't have the level at the moment to reach the tour card, to go on the Pro Tour, to be one of the best 128 players of the world. But sometimes you get these efforts when you don't think on it.
Well, that memorable week at Q School, you get to the final stage, a quarter-final on the first day, another point on the board in day 2, then you go out in round 1 on day 3. How were you feeling going into that final day, still well in contention of getting a tour card?
Just do it. On the first day, in the quarter-final, I made the 5th leg, and after that I said, okay, you had the plans for Challenge Tour, you had to plan a week for Modus with Dragutin Horvat, and all these things are in my head, and I lost the game. And the second day, it was really difficult in my head, because I didn't thought I can reach the quarterfinal in the final stage. Then I reached the quarterfinal, and I was in front, and then all the other things are in my head. And yes, on the final day, I said to me, just do it. You can do it because you are good enough. You need 2 points. And if you win the 2 points, then it's it's so difficult to explain when you don't find the right words for it, because it was a really difficult feeling in me. Yeah, it was hard, but I did it.
Yeah, that's exactly what you did. 2 points on that final day, it's enough to earn that tour card via the Order of Merit. What was that moment like when you found out that you had done enough and you were a tour card holder?
I think I was the saddest tour card winner of the weekend. Yeah, because I made so many other plans, not with the tour card. I planned the Challenge Tour and anything else, and then I said to my girlfriend, I'm so sorry, I must travel more than before, and she smiled and gave me a kiss, and everything was fine.
Glad to hear it. Well, the PDC is a professional tour for darts players, but we know many players still work and play darts, and you mentioned it earlier that you're still working as well. What is it you do for work, and how do you juggle work and darts at the same time?
I'm a mechanic. I can also make my own darts if I had time for it. But I also work at my normal job. It's a little bit difficult to complain, to make booths, but it's okay. I had a lot of more spaces for my work, but I also must work enough hours to make free, but without my work, this doesn't, I can't, or it was too hard to handle. Or only darts is not enough at the moment. Yeah.
And I read your colleagues at work, they also like to play you at darts during their breaks, and the work environment is a nice change for you from the stressful life it can be sometimes as a darts player. Have any of your work colleagues managed to beat you at darts yet?
Not yet. One college manager, one worker had a board at home after I gave it him for 2 weeks, and they also train in the breaks, but they are not good enough to beat me. But it's really funny to play in the breaks a little bit, talk about darts, and everybody's looking, and it feels good that they're interested in what I do.
Good times. Well, one player who's very topical in the darts world at the moment is Luke Littler, and if my translation is right, your last name, Wenig, in English means few. So has anyone called you the German Luke Littler?
Not before. I'm not good enough at the moment, I think. It's so fantastic to see what Luke is playing, and it's more than another level, and it's great to see, but no one called me that before. They only called me German Gerwyn Price because I think we had the same arm size, but it's...
Well, I've got to ask you off the back of that then, who would win in an arm wrestle, you or Gerwyn Price?
Maybe Price, I think, but I don't know. I'm a little bit too shy to ask him, but maybe in 1 year we will do it.
Well, we look forward to that. And finally, let's finish back to this weekend in Munich. It's the first Euro Tour. You mentioned that you played in Belgium. You went all the way to a last leg decider with Rob Cross. The draw for this weekend is not out yet when we're talking. It could be a Peter Wright, maybe a Nathan Aspinall in the first round. Is there anyone that you'd like to play on that stage, or do you not have a preference who you play?
I think it's not so cool to play against another German in the first round. We are 8 German players, or maybe 7 in the first round. The chance is there, but I wish some opponents like Peter Wright or Nathan Aspinall. I think it's a little bit easier for me to play against the big names than the other ones. Okay, it's not the right answer, but I feel more confidence to play against the big ones, and yeah, I take everyone.
That's a good way to be. Well, Lukas, it's been a pleasure to get you on the show. Thanks very much for giving us some of your time, and we wish you all the best for not just this weekend in Munich, but what else is to come in 2024 as well.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure to make it with you.
Thanks again to Lukas for joining us. Now, continuing our look back at the weekend of darts and over to the seniors, where it was 4th time lucky for Richie Howson. After 3 final defeats last year, he wins his first TB title at the Champion of Champions. What did you make of his run to the title?
I mean, one of the more impressive runs we've seen just in terms of consistency and performance, because all 3 matches were bang on the same as the other 3. As the other 2, you look first match in terms of, averages at least. First match, 89, which was the second highest average of the round. Second match, 90, highest average of the round. In fact, second highest average of the tournament. And in the final, 90 again. 3 matches of a longer format that were all the same, 2 of which he had to come from behind in. He was 3-0 down in both the semifinals and finals. He was 8-6 down to Andy Hamilton, 9-8 down as well, and came back and won that match. It was just an all-in-all strong performance. And it started with what was probably the toughest draw. Sure, Leonard Gates hasn't been as good so far this year as he was last year on the Seniors Tour, losing first match of the World Championships, then now losing first match with an 84 average here. But he never really was given a chance. 15 darters the first couple legs, threw in a few more, 14 and 11 later on in the match. it was just a consistently strong performance against one of the best players. Granted, not Leonard Gates isn't to be outdone, because right after that he goes and plays in the Modus Super League and manages to bust 166 to show that there's still not a single thing Leonard Gates can't do on the dartboard other than count. But Richie Howson just beat him to a pulp. And I mentioned those two comebacks against Martin Adams and then in the final against Andy Hamilton. You can't really find anything wrong with this weekend. And it makes you wonder what Richie Howson would have managed to do had he really had that chance to break through earlier in his career. He's obviously a very, very talented player, and he's now more confident than he's ever been. He's picked up 6 other titles over the last couple of years in the senior circuit. He's made those trio of televised finals. Amazingly, never even having the lead in any of them before he took the lead after falling behind early against Andy Hamilton in the final. But I think it's also, worth mentioning Andy Hamilton. It was a very big weekend for him. He had the highest average of the tournament, knocking out the world senior champion, that is, John Henderson, in his first match. And just withstanding a valiant fight back. After he got within one leg of the match, Henderson put back-to-back 12 darters. Hamilton missed a handful of darts for the match in the next leg, but he held it together and he came back in the 18th leg and closed out the deal. And what a performance that was. Winning legs along the way, 14, 13, 11, 12. Only 2 legs that he had to go more than 6 visits. It was just a strong performance, and that's why he had the highest average of the tournament. And he followed it up, not performing as well in the semifinal against Richard Eric Rowlands, but he was never seriously in doubt there, getting to a 5-0 lead in that match. A fight back from the Welshman late, kind of like Hendo did, but the lead was just too much for Hamilton to relinquish the entire thing, and eventually he closed it out in the 24th leg. A really good weekend, and it did look like Hamilton would finally win a major final. Lost a pair, including obviously that world final, the first world final I ever saw, when he lost the 2012 one to Adrian Lewis all those years ago now. It looked like he might finally get that title, but Richie Howson just was too much for him in it, and a deserved winner. So what do I make of his weekend? I'll give it an A+. At this level, at the senior level, it was a very, very good weekend, and he was a deserved champ after thrice being the bridesmaid.
Yeah, an A+ for Richie. I think if you're going to Blackpool for the weekend, it's always going to be an A+. And I was pleased for Richie. He's been one of the success stories, if you like, from the birth of the World Seniors over the last couple of years. Someone that has been around before. He's played on the tour, but never really had his moment in the spotlight. But the Seniors has given him that chance to write a few more chapters in his story, probably change the plot, the story, the blurb, the title of the book, and everything in between, because of the success that he's had. And he's got to those 3 finals on the TV last year. Didn't go to plan for him, losing to Robert Thornton in the World Seniors Championship at his home venue, the Circus Tavern. Then those 2 finals to Leonard Gates, the champion of champions, the World Masters. But he kept saying after each one, I'm going to win one of these. And that was the message he was telling us. You're going to hear from him a little bit later on. We were recording this before we spoke to Richie, but maybe there was a few lingering doubts in his head, particularly after that 3rd final defeat, that maybe it's not meant to be. And maybe even times at the weekend. You mentioned it that finals day, and I missed Saturday's play, but managed to watch most of Sunday's session and both the semi-final and the final. You touched on it, 3-0 down in both of those games. And to players like Martin Adams and Andy Hamilton, okay, 2 players that aren't at the heyday of their careers. We know Wolfie, a 3-time Lakeside champion, Andy Hamilton, been in the Premier League major finals in the PDC, back in their pomp. If you go 3-0 down against them, okay, it is a race to 13 legs. It would have been a very tough task to come back. But I think the resilience of Richie Howson is what shone through at the weekend for me in both those games. The semi-final with Wolfie, a real nip and tuck battle, and Richie managed to go 12-9 in front. Wolfie comes back a pair of 15 darts, gets it back to 12-11, and Richie gets over the line a 13 dart to get through to the final. And the final with Andy Hamilton, 9-8 down, runs off those 4 straight legs to go 12-9 up. And again, it's a 13 darter to get over the line, win the title, win 13-10. And in both of those games, he was giving up a a lot of years of experience on the big stage to those players. But you've got to say that Richie Howson's someone that has benefited these last few years with that stage time in the seniors. He's been in pretty much all the televised seniors events, and looks like he's someone that has soaked everything up. He just looks so comfortable playing in these senior events and on these stages now, and he just looks at home up there. And to put aside those final heartbreaks from last year, and I've not mentioned that 10-2 demolition of Leonard Gates that you said in the quarterfinals on Saturday, is I think a well-deserved winner, and there's not going to be many more popular winners, I don't think, on TV this year, because he's always come across as a nice guy during these seniors events, and a couple of years ago was very generously signed I think it was like the LP Metal Detecting was the sponsor back then. They had the product catalogues laying around on the tables, got him to sign one of them, and he had no issue doing it. So yeah, top man.
Well, it's time to get the passport out as the Euro Tour rolls into Munich this weekend. It's often picked as the best one to attend, but if you could go to just one Euro Tour weekend, which one would it be?
Yeah, this is a question that we've actually asked some of our guests on the show in the past. I remember us chatting with Paul Nicholson, Dan Dawson, Philip Brzezinski, the Euro Tour MC, and they've all got their own opinions on it. And there may be some venues or locations from previous years that are no longer on the calendar. I know Dusseldorf is one that Scott mentioned before. For this one, though, I've got to say I'm going to be easily pleased, as you could offer me any of those and I'd be happy to go. I've not been to a Euro Tour yet. It's been on my darts bucket list for a few years now, but I have heard good things about Munich, the one this weekend, which is traditionally held over the Easter weekend. So we've got to give a public service announcement to our listeners. If you're expecting to watch some Euro Tour on the bank holiday Friday, you're going to be disappointed, because the tournament doesn't start until Saturday, so you're going to have to wait an extra day to enjoy the darts then. But looking at the locations for 2024, two of those places I have been to before, Budapest and Prague, not for the darts, but two great locations, and I'd love to go back to them. And another option, the Swiss Darts Trophy in Basel in September. It's the first time the Euro Tour is going to be going to Switzerland, so I guess a chance to be a part of history there by choosing that one would be good. And of course, it's probably the best chance of our friend Marcel Wolpen, the Swiss Stompe, qualifying, so it would be great to see him play live as well. And then you've got two Euro Tours in Belgium this year. We've already had one a few weeks ago, but the second one in Antwerp in September as well. The Belgian crowds, we've said it before, up there with the best in the PDC. And then aside from that, you've got one in Austria, one in the Netherlands. I can't recall visiting either of those countries, so again, I'd take either of them to tick off the list. And then we're left with all the other ones in Germany. I've spoken about Munich, Riesa. I've always heard it's one of the hardest ones to get to, so a lot of travelling involved. So maybe my answer is going to boil down to which is the easiest location to get to. But from what I've heard, I'm gonna whittle it down to three. My number one is going to be Munich. Number two for this year is going to be Basel, just for that history element, being the first one in Switzerland. And then number three, I'm going to go with the one in the Netherlands, Rosmalen, and a chance to possibly meet up with some of our Dutch listeners and friends of the show. So there's my top three.
Well, you mentioned the difficulty getting to Riesa. That was actually the first one I went to, and I escaped a hurricane in Houston to get there. So, I don't think you have any excuse to not want to try to get to that one, other than the fact that it's probably not the brightest destination on the European Tour calendar. But it was fun to go to. Flying from Houston to New York to Manchester. Taking the train down to fly to drop my stuff off at Oxford, and then I dropped my stuff off with our producer Hannah in East London, which was a change in plans, which is why I originally flew to Manchester. Then flew from I want to say Gatwick, I can't recall for sure though, to Leipzig, and then took the train excessively hungover the following morning after being out drinking till 2 a.m. in Leipzig to Riesa to go to the Euro Tour. And do you know who was on the first match when I got there?
No, you're going to have to tell me.
Andy Hamilton. Although the first player I saw as I walked up to the venue outside smoking, or I assume he was smoking, I can't recall, was Vincent Camphouse. So that's the first dart player I actually saw at the Euro Tour. But I've been to Riesa, not necessarily the one worth going to. If you had to pick just one, I've been to a couple others. But I've never been to Hungary. I'd love to go to Hungary. I'd love to go to Budapest. So I have to pick that one. It's a place I want to go to. I've only place in Belgium I've been is Brussels, and I've heard everywhere else in Belgium is so much better. So I would have, I'd go to Antwerp or Visa if I could. I've been to Prague. I love Prague. I'll always use an excuse to go back to Prague. I have a friend there I haven't seen in years. So that's not a bad one. Not a bad time of year to go to Prague either. In October, weather should still be nice. But then, there's so many good ones in Germany. I've not been to Munich, so maybe I'll say Munich, but I'm prepared to be told other places to go. You know what? Screw it. I'll go to all 13. Why not? It's worth it. If you have a passport and it's not expiring before the 20th of October, then just go to all 13.
Yeah, what a year that would be, getting to all 13 of the Euro Tour as well. We'll be back in a moment to answer some of your questions in the mailbag. But before we do, let's bring in our final guest on this week's show. He is the newly crowned World Seniors Champion of Champions. Here's our chat with Mr. Essex, Richie Howson. I'm pleased to say we're joined by the newly crowned World Seniors Champion of Champions, Richie Howson. Thanks for the time, Richie. How are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, as you can imagine.
Well, there's only one place to start, isn't there? And that is with Sunday, your first TV title in the seniors. What have the last few days been like since the biggest win of your career?
They've been absolutely hectic and manic. My phone hasn't stopped ringing and messages. It's absolutely fantastic. It's certainly a feeling that I've waited a long while for, and I'm really pleased I've got there now.
And anyone who goes to Blackpool for a weekend, they're already onto a winner in my book. So how did you celebrate the win being in Blackpool on Sunday evening?
It's such a fantastic place to play darts. The venue that we played in, the Viva Blackpool, is awesome, and the crowd were unbelievable. It's just so electric, the atmosphere you're playing, and the crowd, they help you celebrate because they're just so big a part of it. It's just been amazing, really. And
you mentioned it's been a manic few days. I remember when we first had you on the show, it was just after you won one of the qualifiers to get into the first World Seniors Championship, and you said that your phone hadn't stopped going off. What's it been like since this win?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different. It was fantastic to qualify for that first one, and that's what spiralled everything off and got me to this point now. But to actually go on and win a major TV tournament with the seniors is a real dream come true, especially after losing in 3 finals last year.
Definitely, and we'll come back to this past weekend a little later on, but let's rewind back to when we last had you on. It was almost exactly a year ago. You just made that second TV final in the Champion of Champions last year. You then make that third final at the Masters. How did you reflect on your 2023 as we turn the page over to this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've got to be really pleased, and I've got to take massive positives from last year. Very, very disappointing to get beat in 3 finals, but I'd much rather be in a final get beat than not get there at all. At least it proves I'm doing something right. So I've got to look at last year as a massive positive, and it's really helped me at the beginning of this year, I think.
Yeah, and you said to us before the hard bit was just getting to the finals, and coming into this year, how were you feeling about your game? Did you feel like your time would eventually come, you would get your hands on one of these trophies?
Well, I think if you've been in 3 finals, you've got to believe that you're capable of winning one. But the difference in thinking you can win one to actually, once you've done it, then you actually know that you can win one. So that's the thing. It's helped massively getting to the finals and to get me positive, thinking I can win one. But now I've actually done it, I think I can push on and hopefully get some more, to be honest.
We shall see. Well, away from the seniors, one trophy you did win before it was away from the TV cameras. You're on for the record of being the longest reigning champion. That is the Viking Cup, and I'm still milking the 140 that I scored with my second throw that day. I'm not going to mention that I averaged 47 and lost 3-0 in the second round. But have you heard anything about that event possibly coming back one day?
I haven't, I'm afraid, Alex. I really, really want it to come back because it's such an important tournament for everybody to remember Andy. And for me to win that first one, it was so special. And I think there was a lot of players there that really wanted to win that inaugural trophy, and I'm so happy to have won it, and I really can't wait for them to have another one, because I'll be trying my hardest to defend it, that's for sure.
Well, let's hope so, and I'll be trying to beat my 47 average. I'm not holding out much hope for that. But let's get back to this past weekend then, another memorable weekend in your darts career. And you said on Facebook that it started off with Guinness and karaoke on the Friday night, so we've got to ask you, what song did you sing?
I've never done karaoke in my life, to be honest with you. I'm not that type, but I'm very quite shy about going and doing things like that. But we was all having a little drink before the start of the tournament on Friday, and they talked me into going up singing with Richard Rowlands. We done Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell, which is one of my favourite songs, and yeah, it was great.
Happy days. Well, it was a lucky omen doing the karaoke. You went on to win the title, and the weekend it got even better. You beat Leonard Gates 10-2 in the quarterfinals, an impressive start to the Champion of Champions. How much confidence did you take from that win alone?
Yeah, it's massive because as I say, I played Leonard 3 times before in the seniors. I got rid of him in the quarterfinals of the Worlds last year, but as I say, he beat me in 2 finals last year as well, and I really wanted it. When I knew I'd drawn Leonard's first round, I knew it was going to be a really tough first round, and I really had to focus and have my head on for that first round and not think of anything else. And I come out the blocks pretty quick against Leonard. He made a few mistakes in his count, and busted a couple of scores, missed a couple of doubles. But my finishing was really good, and I think I put the pressure on him very quickly, and he just buckled really, and it ended up being a fairly easy win really, which I really didn't expect, and I was probably lucky to get that, because I don't think you'd get it like against him very often, to be honest with you. He's such a solid player.
Yeah, it was a great win, and you went into that Sunday as the favourite with the bookmakers. You start the day with a hard-fought win against Martin Adams, then you've got that long break before the final whilst that second semi-final's going on. So how did you try and prepare yourself for that final whilst waiting to see who you were going to come up against?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked the question a few times, would you rather play in the first or the second semi-final, and to be honest, I'm quite happy playing in the first one, because you can, if you do get through, you've got probably about an hour and a half to actually sort of come down from your win in the semi-final, get yourself relaxed, and then get yourself back up again for the final, where if you're in that second semi-final, I think sometimes it happens all so quick afterwards, it can be a bit disorientating. So I was quite happy to be in the first semi-final, and I just really just had a relax, had a little practice to keep my arm in, watch the upper semi-final on the big screen in the players' room, and got myself ready that way really. But Martin was a great game. To play Martin up on that stage is a massive privilege. He's one of the best players there's ever been, and he's a proper hero of mine, and one of the nicest guys you ever meet on in darts. And it was great to play him, although I wish he hadn't been too close, because my nerves was going at the end.
Yeah, it was a nip and tuck game all the way, that one. And then in the final, you beat Andy Hamilton to lift the title. And in both the semi and the final, you went 3-0 down, and against established players on that stage. But I wonder how much have the experiences that you've gained these last few years in the seniors helped you in those situations stay focused and not let your head drop after going behind early on?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long format, so if you do go 3-0 down, even 4-0 down, you've got plenty of time to come back, but you have got to really sort of keep your head focused on it, because players like Andy and Martin, they're so good, they've got so much experience as well, that they can just run away with it if you don't keep on their heels. And I was lucky, in both times, I was lucky enough to get the scores back fairly quickly, and with Andy I went 3-2 before the break, then 3-0 after the break, and then I think then it was pretty much 1 or 2 legs between us right up until about 9-all. So it was a very tough game, and Andy's such a fighter up there. You really can't let him get away with anything, to be honest.
Definitely not. And you always said that you would win one of these titles even after losing those 3 finals last year. You had your partner Lynn on stage with you after to celebrate the win, and I saw that she said, what are you going to buy her with the prize money? Has that been decided yet?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's our 25th wedding anniversary this year, so We're gonna go off to Italy in September, and I'll buy her a few goodies for her birthday in June. So yeah, she'll do all right out of it.
Happy days. And you said as well, not bad for an old pub player on a good run, and what a run it has been, going back to entering those first qualifiers that we mentioned. You're now winning these titles. Could you have ever imagined this is how your darts career would play out?
No, I don't think I could imagine it at all, to be honest with you. I'm 58 this year, or 59 this year. I'm 58 now. And to think you'll be up on the telly winning tournaments at my age, it is really is a dream come true. And it's all thanks to Jason Tame and Jason Francis for setting up the seniors darts. And us over 50s, we've got a chance to relive our sort of like darting life again, really, and it's absolutely fantastic.
And you said as well you like to watch your games back as well. Have you had a chance to rewatch that final on Sunday, those last few moments?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I didn't watch the first game against Leonard, but I watched my semi-final and my final back. I always do, because I always like, win or lose, I like to see how I'm conducting myself on the stage and whether I can improve on it in any ways. And so, I always watch them back. And the only good thing about that is you know the results, so you're not so nervous.
And you're back on the snooker table as well on Monday night. Any high breaks, or was it more of a casual knock-up to celebrate the darts the day before?
It was a league match. I play in a league, and I'm nowhere near as good at snooker as I am at darts. But and I had to play a guy who's actually on the other team. He's my cousin, and he used to be a professional snooker player, and he had to give me 35 stars in the two frames we played. And he absolutely battered me. He had an 84 break in the second frame, so I didn't have much chance against him, really. But I wasn't too disappointed.
So you've got the darts, you've got the snooker, the fishing as well. We know that's a hobby of yours, sometimes with your friend James Wade, and you said you don't really talk about darts with each other, but has he been in touch to say well done after the weekend?
Yeah, I've had a lovely message off of James. Sort of going through things and that. He normally leaves it a couple of days to let my phone die down before he messaged me. And I had a nice message from Dave Chisnell as well, who's a friend of mine. So yeah, I mean, all them things mean so much when you win and you get your peers like praising you. It's a great feeling. It is.
Good to hear. And just lastly, before we let you go, you've obviously got the trip to Italy lined up, but it's a fairly long break now before we've got the next seniors event on TV, the Matchplay in October. What have you got lined up darts-wise between now and then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the Open Series on the seniors tour, which we've got a few of, which I'll be there. I'll probably be watching the qualifiers for that as well. I hope some of the guys from the tour get through. And really just taking it a little bit easier through the summer, just keeping the practice going. As you said, I'll probably do a bit of fishing. I haven't been since last May, which is really unusual for me. So I'm gonna just sort of enjoy myself this summer, and then sort of when it gets towards after I come back from Italy, I'll sort of get my head on ready for the October tournament and in York, and see if we can win that one as well.
Well, it's a well-earned break, Richie. Always a pleasure to get you on the show. Congratulations on the title at the weekend, and wish you all the best for what else is to come in 2024.
Thanks very much, Alex. It's a privilege being on. Thank you.
Thanks again to Richie for joining us, and we'll finish up the show with the mailbag. We've got two questions from our listeners before we go. The first one comes from Darts D. Singer, who says, with getting his first seniors TV title under the belt, is Richie Howson now the man to beat in tournaments going forward?
He's certainly one of the men to beat in tournaments going forward, or should I say people, because we can't ignore Lisa Ashton as well, who had every chance in the World Championship semifinals not that long ago. But I still think John Henderson's playing at a very similar level. He just won the World Championships and went out in a tight match against the performance of the tournament that Andy Hamilton had. I still think Leonard Gates will find his game again. Maybe Robert Thornton will bounce back, and there might be other players we don't know yet. This was a very, very impressive weekend from Richie Howson, and it wasn't surprising. He's been to 3 finals before. He's always right up there. And the consistency was strong. But John Henderson's the world champion. John Henderson is the best player in the senior circuit right now, even if he didn't show it this past weekend. So I'll say Hendo is the man to beat, but Richie Howson is the man who's ready to beat him.
Yeah, I'm not too dissimilar to you. I've got to say the confidence is going to be high for Richie Howson after that win at the weekend, that's for sure. And we've spoken earlier about his run to the title in Blackpool. He didn't have it easy, and the performances he put in certainly surpassed the experience that he's got on the big stage. But like you, I'm not going to say he is the man to beat. I'd still put John Henderson and probably Leonard Gates above him as well. And it might sound strange putting Leonard Gates ahead of him, seeing as that he's just beaten Leonard 10-2 at the Champion of Champions. But we know the levels that Leonard Gates can hit. We saw it last year. He's still a threat for these events, and one of the players to beat. John Henderson, the World Seniors champion, the biggest event in the seniors. Didn't play too badly at the weekend. I didn't see his game with Andy Hamilton, but 9-5 down, got it back to 9-8, just left himself too much to do in the end. And just having a look, actually, the next event in the seniors on TV, I think it's either the Masters or the Matchplay. Don't think it's till in October. So if I've read the calendar right, that's a long wait now before we see the seniors back on our screen. So I think, yeah, when we get to that point, Richie, he'll probably go off somewhere like the third or fourth favourite with the bookmakers, but forgetting them, the belief that he's got in himself, I think he's going to think, well, I've done it once, I can go and do it again. He's going to be dangerous.
And lastly, Elliot asks, how do you expect darts players' roles as media personalities / influencers are going to change given the increased media attention?
Well, this is a question that Elliot sent in from a few weeks ago, so thanks for sending it in. And if we don't answer the question that you send in on the week that you send it, there is a chance that we're going to bring it up in a future episode. So as you'd say, Burton, hang tight for that. But darts players as media personalities and influencers, not something I think we've ever discussed on the show before, but it's a relevant topic, and we've not really spoken about it this week. But the eyeballs that Luke Littler's brought to darts and the appearances he's been making on TV, other media platforms, interviews, etc., I guess he is somewhat of a media personality for darts at the moment. And how often do you see videos of a dart player being interviewed on primetime Saturday night TV chat shows or playing darts with the Manchester United squad? I think how the darts player's role will change is that it actually will become a role. The increase in media attention, it does mean you are going to see more instances of darts in the media at the moment. It's almost exclusively revolving around Luke Littler. You'd like to think that is going to transfer to other players. They're going to get some of that spotlight as well. But for the time being, darts, it is more in the public eye than it's been for a long, long time. And hopefully that is going to continue for a while yet, and more people are going to start to enjoy the darts with us and our listeners.
Yeah, this is not something we've talked about before, but I think it's a very interesting question. We've seen players carve out a niche for themselves as influencers. The biggest example is Matthew Edgar, his Edgar TV, and you'd have to ask him how much that has helped him, but I assume it has done a tremendous job. It's made it so that he doesn't have to go to Q school to still be very much a part of darts and very much making a career out of darts. But other players, at the higher end, are realizing that there is a market out there to grow themselves and to grow their brand through being a personality and through being an influencer. And, we've always talked about the personalities in darts. Even before the age of social media, there were personalities in darts, and, even players who part of their shtick is how they would walk on, whether it was Steve Hine carrying muffins or whatever. There's always been, some way to make a personality part of who you are and have you stand out. But now there's an entire market around there, and there's that ability to create content. And I think we will see more of it. It's a business opportunity that the top players can make a lot of money on, but Matthew Edgar has shown that even players in that second or third tier can turn into a career. So I think we're going to see more of it, or at least more players try to do it, especially if they have figure out a way that they can market themselves in a way that no one else can. Anything else for this week?
Well, we've got to say a few thank yous. Thank you to our guests for joining us, to Lukas and Richie for their time. Thank you to our sponsors, to Darts Corner and Condor Darts for their continued support. Links in the description. Do go and check them out for all your darting needs. Thank you to everyone for listening as well. We appreciate the support. We've got some exciting stuff lined up for the show, so stick with us. I'm planning to be in Manchester for the Premier League next Thursday, which means I'm going to miss Emmerdale, so no spoilers please on social media next week, but we are hoping to grab Matt Porter whilst we're there. So any questions that you've got for Matt, do get in touch. This is your chance to ask the PDC chief exec a question, so make the most of it. We do try and get Matt on the show once or twice a year, so going to be good to catch up with him next week, and we'll see what else we can get whilst we're there. But until then, we'll be back next week, so in the meantime, make sure you enjoy the darts.
Yes, and you already said my slogan earlier in about hanging tight to listen, see if your questions make it. So for anyone who sent in a question that we didn't ask, Alex already told you what to do. For everyone else, you should hang tight anyway, because there's Euro Tour darts coming, as Alex said earlier, not on Friday, on Saturday. It's one extra day of hanging tight, but that means one extra day of letting loose when the week begins on Monday. So until then, hang tight, and then enjoy the darts.